Letter 7. The Dera, December 17th, 1932. Dear fellow travellers on the path. On our return from the mountains, October 24th, we stopped and spread our lunch, camp fashion, by a little stream at the famous Bunja Sahib, around which an interesting legend has been woven. The stream runs close by a small mountain, on the top of which, the tradition says, used to be a spring of cold water. By the side of this spring sat a Muslim fakir in meditation. It was in the time of Guru Nanak in the 15th century. It is believed that one day Guru Nanak, with one of his disciples, came along, and the disciple went up to ask water of the fakir, but was refused. Upon hearing this, Guru Nanak thrust a stick into the ground, and a stream of cold water burst forth at that point. At the same time, the stream on the mountain ceased to flow. Seeing this, the fakir was very angry and rolled a great boulder down the mountainside with intent to kill Guru Nanak and his disciple. But the Guru simply put forth his hand and stopped the boulder as it came near him. The print of his hand was left in the side of the rock, and those fingerprints are shown to the traveller to this day. The Sikhs have built up around it quite a place of pilgrimage, and are just now laying the foundation for a large dharamsala or gurdwara. From there we came to Rawalpindi, which we reached at 3:30 in the afternoon, and the good master sought a little rest as he took refuge from the ever-pressing crowds by going to his own suite of rooms in the new satsang hall. We come now to one of the most peculiar problems in the religious life of India. The master's return to Rawalpindi was hailed with delight by large numbers. Even a considerable body of the Sikhs, who do not follow the orthodox majority, welcomed the master and pledged him their support. But equally demonstrative was the opposition. The orthodox Sikhs did not like the enthusiastic support the master was receiving everywhere, and so they decided to interfere. They held private meetings and took counsel among themselves as to what could be done, just as the scribes and Pharisees, leaders of the Jewish Orthodox body, did when Jesus became too popular to suit them. They decided to break up the meetings at the hall. So this evening they came out in force, many of them carrying the customary short sword, and some few had long swords. If they had to fight, they would be ready. Of course, the master's disciples were not armed. 2 of the visitors sat at the writer's left, and they had long swords which they laid down at the very feet of the master. Soon after the meeting opened, one loud-mouthed gentleman arose in the hall and began to argue and speak ill of the master. He would not heed kindness or listen to reason. He could not be stopped. So they started to eject him from the hall. This was the cue the others were waiting for. The 2 at our left took up their swords. Others went to the assistance of the first disturber. For a time the scene grew threatening, but fortunately someone had finally called the police force, and by the time the melee had developed into a mild battle, the police had arrived, and our armed brethren had all suddenly disappeared. They had vanished through the nearest exits, as if by magic, and quiet was soon restored. It is interesting to note that the master had foreseen this disturbance, and had advised the management of the auditorium to have the police on watch. But they had neglected this precaution, and as usual, when the master's advice is not heeded, they came to regret it. In the midst of it all sat the master, the only calm one in the house. This disciple had taken up a position close by the master's side, saying to himself that he did so in order to help defend the master in case of a personal attack. But it may be that subconsciously he felt that near the master was the safest place for himself. Since returning to the Dera, the master has told us that all during the confusion, his own master stood by his side, clothed in light and unlimited power, and that it would have been utterly impossible for anyone to have hurt him. After order was restored, the master quietly announced satsang for 7 o'clock the next morning, although he had not so intended before. This was held as announced, and all was as quiet as a night on the Potomac, a deep peace pervading the assembly. And so, there is the peculiar problem above referred to, that of a section of the Orthodox Sikhs and their bitter opposition to Sant Mat. Even the Muslims are much more friendly, many of them seeking initiation of the Master. It may be of interest to note that our Master himself was born a Sikh, and so are a great many of our leading satsangis. It should be borne in mind that there is nothing in Sant Mat to antagonize any religion, least of all the Sikh religion, the spiritual core of which is practically the same as ours. It has no dogmas to defend. It has no priesthood to be supported. It does not fight any other religion. In fact, it is not a religion in the ordinary meaning of the term. The Master says it is the science of connecting the individual soul with its Creator. It desires to set up no new creed or church and cares not for the destruction of any old one. With them all, it has nothing to do, any more than a science like astronomy has to do with a church creed. It teaches the sound current and the method of yoga, which takes the soul inward and upward to spiritual regions and to ultimate freedom. With this alone it is concerned. Consequently, a devotee of any religion may avail himself of it without antagonizing his own organization. It is a private matter and has to do only with internal practice. Let us briefly sketch the history of Sikhism. That religion was founded by Guru Nanak in the 15th century and partly in the 16th. Guru Nanak was a real saint, a great and holy man who had attained the highest regions. His teaching, along with that of his contemporary saint, the great Kabir Sahib and later Tulsi Sahib, also laid the foundation for the Radha Soami system of practice. As already stated above, the basic spiritual core of Sant Mat and the Sikh teachings is practically the same. Swamiji of Agra only simplified the earlier teaching and gave it out in clear and lucid terms in the local language. The yoga, or practice of the sound current, is the central theme of them both. Guru Nanak had 9 successors, each in turn carrying on the great work in the face of much opposition and deadly persecution. That line of masters included Angad Dev, Amar Das, Ram Das, Arjan Dev, Har Gobind, Har Rai, Har Kishan, Teg Bahadur, and Gobind Singh in the order named. Guru Nanak was born in 1469 and died in 1539, and the last of his successors died in 1708. The city of Amritsar was founded in 1572 by Guru Ram Das, and in 1588 his successor Arjan Dev completed the famous Golden Temple in Amritsar. Under the leadership of the 10th Guru, the Sikhs became a power in the land. They were finally successful in helping to overthrow the last remnant of Mughal tyranny and to establish religious liberty under the Khalsa rule of the great Maharaja Ranjit Singh. As warriors, they came to be known as lions, the word Singh meaning lion. They were strong, brave, and clean-living men, and today among them are to be found the finest specimens of physical manhood in Punjab or in all India. They offer, perhaps, the world's finest example of what a noble type of man can be formed by clean living, free from meats, alcohol and tobacco, and inspired by a certain knowledge of the future of the soul in regions of light. Theirs was a noble heritage indeed. In the course of time, however, the emphasis of the teachings gradually shifted from spiritual practice under the guidance of a living master to the practice of rituals and external observances. Many devout Sikhs began to confine their religious activities to reading and reciting the holy book, little realizing that it enjoins upon the readers the necessity of internal practice of the sound current to attain ultimate salvation. October 24th, we arrived in Jhelum. This beautiful city lies along the banks of the Jhelum River, one of the 5 rivers of Punjab. And in this large and fertile area, so well watered, our Master lives. Punjab is doubtless the finest part of India. In Jhelum, our Master has about 200 disciples. As a father looks after all of his children, so our Father tries to visit every section where his spiritual children live. It may take him 2 or 3 years to get around to them all, but he neglects none. 1,000 people attended satsang this evening. The attention was perfect as usual. All hung upon the Master's words, as if they realized that those words carried the message of eternal life. This disciple, in attending public meetings for 60 years, has never known a speaker who could hold his audiences with such rapt attention and eager interest as our beloved Master can do. And the interest never seems to fail or decrease up to the last moment of the hour and a half or 2 hours during which he speaks to them in an ordinary conversational manner. Though frequently rising to heights of true eloquence, there is never any attempt at oratory. Everyone feels that his discourses flow from a great heart of love and a brain illuminated by the light of divine wisdom. We left Jhelum the next morning for Lalpur, stopping at several places along the way where the Master held short satsangs. Groups of from 50 to several hundreds were waiting for him at many places. Arriving at Lalpur, there were 500 or 600 gathered for satsang. They were nearly all members of the college faculty and their families. Here is one of the greatest agricultural colleges in the world, its experimental farms extending for miles. It is doing much for all India. The beloved Sardar Jagat Singh, who has long been the Master's secretary and writes the American letters, is professor of chemistry in this college. We were entertained in lovely homes, and this disciple was served the most delicious fruit salad he had tasted since leaving America. The next day we came on to Lahore, where the Master held satsang at 1 o'clock, which was attended by more than 2,000 people. When we went to leave there, lines of people had formed 2 blocks long, through which the Master's car made but slow progress. Every man, woman and child was anxious to get one more nearby glimpse of their beloved Sadhguru. Many had tears in their eyes as they said the last Radha Soami. The next stop was in Amritsar at 4 o'clock, where 1,000 or more devoted disciples awaited their Master. He gave them a brief talk, and then, after a short business conference with some judges, lawyers, etc., concerning some public works of interest to the Dera, we started on the last lap of our return journey, arriving at the Dera at about 6:30. It is a delight to rest again in our own little corner here in this holy retreat, far from the haunts of passion and the marts of greed, where men are real brothers, and our gracious Father looks with loving kindness upon us all. Affectionately, your fellow disciple, Julian P. Johnson.